first job was to produce parts of watches in Le Brassus. Very quickly, I can say after 1 year, 1 year and a half, I said to myself, Romain, look, you're born in the Valley, you have an engineer background, and now you know how to produce parts of watches. Why you don't imagine to doing your own movement? And everything started like that. So in 2000, I enrolled an MBA. My final thesis was a business plan about what we are today. And yes, step by step after that, from 2002 to 2005, I developed the first caliber, the Prestige HM. I also produced the parts with my last company. My last boss gave me the possibilities during the weekend and during holidays to produce my parts. And I established the brand then in 2005. I clearly understood that, Romain, there is a place for things, but with another DNA. And a DNA that you don't compromise and you take the time to do the things. So that means from my idea, from my design, from my engineering, from my thinking, then after that we can manufacture 95% of every part. We can doing the finishing, we can doing the assembly, the test, everything.
Typically how the creative process starts is that Romain will work on designing the overall movement, the global design of the watch, and then within that each component will have its own design. Romain will give his design to the machine programmer operators. They will then machine the components, and then we make sure that those components look good and last longer and work well within the movement by subjecting them to various treatments. That might be hardening, polishing, tempering, burnishing, and throughout that we're subjecting those components to very rigorous quality control tests where we're always checking for the precision, the dimensions of the piece, and also the aesthetics, if they look exactly as we want them to look. The components are then, for each movement, placed in a kit, and then they might be finished in different ways, decorated in different ways. So that might include circular graining, spotting, perlage, and then we'll bring those components to the hand finishing atelier. In the atelier, we mainly carry out anglage, which is the hand beveling and hand polishing of bridges and main plates. But we also carry out other hand finishing techniques there. The bulk of the activity that happens in the hand finishing atelier is anglage. So what happens in anglage? They will start by creating a bevel using a steel file. They'll then soften the material using a buff that's got an emery paper tip, and then they'll finally polish the angle with gentian, which is a plant. It's the woody stem of a plant that actually Romain collects locally in the autumn. They'll use that plant gentian in combination with diamond paste to then give the angle on the bridge a mirror polish. So once the components and the main plate have been hand finished, the kit of components are handed to the watchmaker and our watchmakers. They then take the kit and they assemble and regulate the movement of the watch. Along the way, they carry out lots of artisanal processes. Obviously with Logical 1, they hand assemble the chain that features steel links and ruby rollers. They blue steel hands in the case where the hands are made in steel. The watchmakers flame blue the steel hands. After assembling the movement, the watchmaker fits the dial and the hands, and then they will case up the movement. And along the way, the watchmakers, they always say it's assembly and regulation. The watchmakers are constantly carrying out tests and checks and tweaks to make sure that when the watch leaves the factory, it's functioning optimally. We also have our own in-house screws. Rather than having a straight slot, they have an S-shaped slot. Now that doesn't just look good, it also means that when the watchmaker is assembling the movement, it provides more torque, there's less chance of slippage. That in itself means that we also have to create our own tools. So we have an EVAG machine which we can work down to the micron, and using that machine we can create our own tools. Tools to make the watches and also tools to assemble the watches as well.
So for me, you know, when I'm designing, when I'm doing the engineering, I never compromise. I'm just doing until the point that I say, this is wonderful, this is beautiful, has to be like that. So I don't think about price, I don't thinking about, you know, how we will do that. Beauty, for me, I always say, when people say it's beautiful, most of the time they don't know necessarily why. And that's the point when it's really beautiful, because you don't have to explain. I always say a watch is small, so if we don't take care about the details, what we do?